Welcome to the training webinar. I'm Dale Franks. You already know that. Before we begin, a couple of administrative notes. Next week is Thanksgiving. Next week is Thanksgiving, and BP Logix takes Thursday and Friday off for Thanksgiving. So it's a 3-day work week for all of us next week. And Thursday is not one of those work days, so there won't be a webinar next week. As I pointed out earlier, I do have a jury duty summons that will take place starting on Friday, the 13th of December, and will go through the next Thursday. So there is a chance, I don't know how much of a chance, that I just won't be here on Thursday, December 19th. I'll be here on the 12th because that's the day before my jury duty starts. But the way California does it is you call up after 5 p.m. every night to see if you have to show up physically the next day. And you don't know when you might have to show up physically. You're on call for an entire week. And so technically, it is possible that I am here on Thursday the 19th. It is also possible that I will call up on the evening of the 18th and be told that I have to show up on the 19th. And so I don't know. And so as a result, the webinar for the 19th of December will also be canceled. So over the next month, there's only going to be 2 webinars because of Thanksgiving and because of my jury duty and the possibility that I will simply be on jury duty and not be here on the 19th. So with that in mind, let's talk about the topic of today. On the schedule, it says we're going to talk about charts. And that's technically true. We are going to talk about charts, but that's not what I want to concentrate on today. Because each of these topics gets covered about once per year, I think I've got like 55 different topics now that we cover on the training webinar. So it takes about a year, a little more maybe, to get back to the same topic. But because, I have repeated these topics before, every time I repeat a topic, I want to look at a new spin on that topic. And so today, that spin is not so much the charts. You want to know how to configure a chart, you could probably just read the documentation and figure out how to configure a chart. What isn't as easy to do is to figure out what kind of data and how to manipulate the data to get it into the sort of chart that you want to display, because different charts require the data in a slightly different format. And that is, I think, what I want to concentrate on today in terms of talking about charts. Yeah, we'll probably look at the charts later on, and we'll see how they're configured to match the data that I've created. But for the most part, we don't care as much about charts. And I really wish that there was some way that I could tell sort of 6 weeks in advance when I write up the schedule on the support site what little wrinkle I wanted to talk about. But today's little wrinkle is going to be very data specific. And more to the point, it's going to be very SQL specific. So I'm going to have some data. We're going to look at it. I'll probably post some of the SQL statements into the chat so that you have an example of what I've done. But the whole point of charts is to be able to show data in some sort of infographic format. And the type of chart that you choose will determine how the data has to be organized. So let's start by taking a look at some simple examples of just organizing the data for the chart. So I will share my screen. And in the dashboard that I have, my sample dashboard that I cover, is this the dashboard? I think it's the dashboard. Let's run it real quick. And we'll take a look at the dashboard. And it just has a whole bunch of charts on it and has several different types of charts. At least it should, if it would run, if that was indeed the dashboard itself. I thought it was, yes. I'm just not sure Okay, there we go. Let's run it again. All right, not sure what that delay was about, but here is the dashboard and it's spread all the way across my huge screen here. But I have all these different charts and there's one chart here that's missing. I may have messed up this dashboard somehow in manipulating it. But as you can see, I've got some bar charts, both horizontally and vertically. I have some stacked bar charts as well. And I've got a pie chart over here. Now, as I said, different kind of charts take different kind of data. Now, what I've done here is I've cheated. And the way that I've cheated is I've actually just built the final data into this spreadsheet. So let's grab this Excel spreadsheet and open her up. And we can take a look at the data that I have I've brought in. And there's really only two types of data, and they're both already set up as percentages. So I've got, and let's actually run this again just to, well, didn't mean to close it. Let's run it again and show it on the screen. And we'll have our little data there and now, or we have our little charts and now we can look at our data. So here's what I've done. These three bar charts are all run off of this first table. And I've cheated a little bit because what I've done is I've already aggregated this data. So I've already split it out by month. And then I have the number of unresolved issues. These are all tech support issues, or at least notional ones that I've made up. So I have my unresolved issues, my resolved issues, and then the amount of touch time that these issues have taken in minutes. And then I've just done a little math, and I have, well, actually, I haven't even done any math. What I've actually done is just made up percentages for how much Team A put into resolving these tickets and how much effort Team B put in to resolving these tickets. And so now I have these 4 or 5 columns. And with these 5 columns, I can generate a couple of different charts. So again, because everything is split up by month, I don't have to do any grouping or sorting in the chart. I don't have to do anything special in the data because it's already grouped, right? And because it's grouped, I can generate, let's say, this touch times report down here at the very bottom. I've got a column that lists my touch times. In this case, they're listed in minutes, and all I've had to do is just convert the number of minutes to hours in the chart. But I have the base data in minutes, so converting it to hours, just divide by 60 and you get hours. Similarly, on the team effort, I have these 2 columns here, Team A and Team B. And so therefore I can generate this stacked bar chart, which just displays the various percentages that are shown up here in those 2 columns. And then finally, issues by team. I have actually basically done the sort of the same thing by just sticking in my Team A and Team B numbers in here and splitting them off in the appropriate fashion. So all of my data for those 3 charts really comes off of this table. However, this data wouldn't work with a pie chart. I mean, I suppose it would if I wanted to divide my pie chart by month. But I don't. What I want to divide it by is my resolved and my unresolved issues, although the unresolved, there we go. Now we can see the entire word, unresolved. So there are my unresolved issues, and here are my resolved issues. So what I'm doing is I'm summing these 2 columns because I want the total of those issues. And well, actually, what I've done is I've cheated again here because I need to sum these issues rather than trying to do it in the chart itself. I just generated my data. And by generated, I mean made up and just literally typed numbers in to this spreadsheet. And this is the base data for my chart. So I have a label column, resolved and unresolved, and then I have the numbers of unresolved and resolved. So in all these cases here, what I have done is I have already done all of the grouping that I need to do in my base data to generate a chart easily and quickly without having to spend a lot of time doing a whole bunch of aggregation inside the chart itself. You can do that aggregation in the chart itself, but it's a lot easier if you just pull your data back in the way that you want it, and then you don't have to worry about how to group and sort your data because you've already put your data in the right state. Now, here's the thing. I can only do this if I'm pulling the data directly from Process Director and not using a knowledge view. Here's the problem with knowledge views. There is no aggregation. There's no way to manipulate that data. So if I want to do a whole bunch of different charts like this, I have to put in a lot more work on that chart. By the way, just to take a look at one of these charts and how they're configured and how simple they are to configure, when we look at the data source, okay, here's my totals pie. I'm grouping by the label field. There's only 2 fields. And so my chart series is just the totals. I don't really have to do anything. I just pick totals because I'm already grouping by the label. So totals are my number. I can just zip these charts out super quick because I've already massaged my data. Now, if I'm using a knowledge view, I can't do that, right? So in a knowledge view, and let's look at my sample chart data knowledge view. Let's just run it and see the data. Now, in both of these cases, these are all form instances. So everything we're going to talk about is form instances that exist in the system. They are, by the way, 2 different sets of form instances because each one of these folders here is a complete application in itself with its own forms and stuff. So we're not looking at the same data. We're actually looking at 2 different forms. But this is the data that gets returned by my knowledge view. So when I have a knowledge view as a chart data source, I don't really have the ability to do anything but take my base data. And this is the actual detailed data from all of my form instances. There's no grouping, there's no sorting, other than, I think I've sorted the column in the knowledge view to stick all the models of car together. But other than that, that's just built into the knowledge view itself, the column that I want to sort by. Sorting is not grouping. Sorting does not concatenate data. It just orders the table rows. And in this case, my table rows are all base data. So that's a drawback number 1 of using a knowledge view. Drawback 2, as you may know, is that knowledge views can be very expensive in terms of system resources. And it takes a long time to chop through the very complex SQL that has to be created on in the internals of Process Director to run a knowledge view. As you can imagine, because we don't know what data you're going to return in a knowledge view, what we do in the back end is we build this extraordinarily complicated SQL statement with a whole bunch of inner and outer joins, and it all just gets cobbled together on the fly based on what it is that you're putting in the knowledge view. And the inner joins and the outer joins and all of that stuff actually put a bigger burden on the database in terms of chopping through the data. Now, it's not that big of a deal here because I've got, 20 records, I guess, 18 records, maybe. If even that much. I guess the highest number I have here is 15. So I guess these are about 15 records. So 15 records, who cares how expensive knowledge views are if I'm only returning 15 records? If I'm returning 1,000 records or 2,000 records, then a knowledge view might take a little while to run, which means that my chart is going to take a little while to run. Granted, I'm only pulling back form instances and specified form instances for one form. So that does help. I'm not trying to look across at both forms and process timelines and user tasks and trying to cobble together data from 30 different tables in the database. I'm really only looking at table form data, but table form data probably, even on a system like mine, probably has a couple of million records in it at this point. And therefore, it takes some irreducible amount of time to go through that. So if I was returning, 1,000 rows or what have you, it might take a little while for this knowledge view to run. Also, whenever I do the chart, I've got to do some extra work inside my business value. Now, where is my business value? There's my, it may be down here in data. There we go. Sample. Nope, that's my data source. Okay, there's my chart. Here's my drill down object, usage form. I'm certainly not, now I'm trying to remember how I did this. Did I do this in the chart? Oh, I'm just pulling it directly out of the chart. Okay, fine. So I got to do a lot of stuff to make this chart work. So on my data source, because of the way this chart works, and by the way, we should probably look at the chart. So let's look at the chart first and run it so that we can see what the chart shows. And it's a fairly complex chart because it's a combination chart. So it's showing me two different aggregates here. So let's give this chart a chance to run. And so we'll pull it aside for the moment, come back here and look at our data. So I am just pulling the chart knowledge use. There's no business value that's running here. It's just pulling the knowledge view directly. And I'm grouping it by field. What I want to show are my rentals for each location. I have 3 locations: San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. And I have 3 different vehicles that might be rented. And I want to show those vehicles, what were rented at what location, and what the ultimate mileage for those vehicles were. And so I've got a lot of chart series to make this work. And what I have to do is know how to aggregate this data so that I'm not just looking at the base data. I need to massage this data, which for whatever reason is not displaying. Not sure what's going on with these charts not showing up or why. This stuff all worked when I looked at it previously. But in any event, there is this aggregate field in each one of the series, right? So I have a couple of different aggregations that I need to do here. Actually, I have some aggregations and some filtering that I need to do here. So I'm looking at the vehicle field. Now remember, I have 3 different vehicles. I have the Blazer, the Corvette, and the Dart. And what I want to show is the number of vehicles, or the number of times that those vehicles have been rented. Now, once again, remember, I wish I could run this in a separate window. Actually, maybe I can. Let me open this up because it looks like I'm going to need multiple windows to do this properly. So let me open up a new copy in this window. Let's go to the content list and let's look at my knowledge view as well. So we can have both of them up, if not at the same time, then at least easily switchable between the two. So we'll go here, and here's my sample chart data. And let's run this knowledge view. So keep in mind, this is my data structure. I'm looking at just the base records. So I need to know the number of times that the Blazer or the Corvette or the Dart was rented. So I've got to count the number of rows. So for the Blazer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Corvette, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the Dart 4 times. So I should get 6, 5, and 4 as my number of rentals for each of these cars. And I have to derive that from this base data, which means I got to do a lot of extra work in the chart. So if we're looking at the vehicle itself, and I want to know how many times the vehicle has been rented, then what I have to do is throw in first an aggregation. I need the count. And the second thing I need to do is I need to filter this vehicles column so that I only pull up Corvette. I have to do that 3 times, by the way, because I need to have basically 3 separate data series for the 3 vehicles that I have. So let's think about what we're doing. First, way up here in the chart data source, I have this group by field. So I'm taking my data and now grouping it by location. So all of my data is now grouped into one of my 3 locations. So that's the first level of data massage that I have to do to generate a chart. The second level, well, I've got lots of second levels. In fact, I've got 3 for just the count. So I have a count with a filter for Corvette. I have a count with a filter for Dart and a count with a filter for Blazer. So I've got to create 3 separate data series for 3 separate vehicles. But I also need the mileage. And again, if we look at our data, I've got no sum for the mileage here. I've got to create that mileage sum in my chart as well. And I have 3 locations. So if I want to do mileage by location, as we come down here, then I've got to do the same thing. But this time my aggregation is to sum the mileage column. And once again, I've got to do it once for the Corvette and once for the Blazer and once for the Dart. And then I want to see what my total mileage is. Now, remember, this is where it gets real complex. I've already grouped by location, right? I've got San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. So now I've got the number of times each vehicle was rented. I've got the mileage for each vehicle. Now I need the mileage for each location. So I need yet another data series. This time, again, looking at mileage and again, looking at sum, but this time I'm taking the filter off. So what I should get is an aggregate of all of the mileage that I have on all of the vehicles. And this chart is still not showing, and I have no idea why. I'm just not sure what's happening. Well, now I'm super curious about this. Let's see if my business value one runs too. This is not great. I'm not sure why this isn't working. And unfortunately, it has to run off of this machine unless I want to start from scratch and build these charts. I'm just not sure why the charts aren't showing. Although I wonder if it's the fact that I'm on the VPN. I am on the VPN. And maybe there's some sort of block on the VPN. I can't imagine why, but I need to be on the VPN to show you what I need to show you. So we're gonna have to come back and look at the charts later. We'll just leave that in abeyance. After I've done all the data stuff, we'll turn off the VPN and we'll go back and see if we can look at the charts. I have no idea why they're not why they're not showing up. But boy, I am using a heck of a lot of VPN bandwidth for the podcast, or for the webinar. So I hope you can actually see and hear everything clearly, because I am throwing out a lot of data over the VPN, which is why I don't usually like to use it in a webinar. In any event, to try to get this data off of a knowledge view, a very simple knowledge view. In fact, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. It has 5 columns, one of which I don't even use. So I really, actually, 2 of which I don't use because I don't use the date. I actually am using 3 columns off of this knowledge view. And to display these 3 columns and to display the data that I want for those 3 columns, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that's the wrong chart series. We have to go back over here to this one and look at that data for my chart series. Wow, this is now not loading this page. Okay, I tell you what. I'm going to turn the VPN off. I'm going to have to turn it back on again later, and we'll take a look at. I hope I didn't mess this all up. I didn't, did I? I'm only showing one. Oh no, I'm only showing one series on this chart. All right, let's just completely refresh this again. I don't think I deleted all of this data, did I? Off this chart. But okay, well, I had at least 7 series on this chart. I don't know what happened. I don't believe I saved it, but now I appear to have overwritten this chart, which means that for this to work, I'm going to have to build it all again, because I had lines on here and bars on here, and now everything is all higgledy-piggledy. I'm not sure what's happening, but this is not good, because I think I've just erased that whole chart. Okay, so not great. But at least we've seen some hint of what the complexity is whenever we're trying to use a knowledge view to pull that data. We have to do a lot of aggregation and a lot of data massaging, and we have to do it all in the chart in order to make it work, just to pull back these 15 records. Okay, so fine. What's a better way of doing this? Because using a knowledge view, while it's quick, is going to require a lot more effort to configure if I want to change this data around the way that I want to see it, and I want to chart it properly. It's going to make everything much, much more complex. I want to escape that complexity, although that may not be the best way of putting it. If I want to get the data back, where do I want to spend my effort? Do I want to spend it on the knowledge view? And if I do, is that knowledge view going to take forever to run? Or do I want to get the data back much more quickly and expend some extra effort, but expend it on actually getting the data into the format that I want, so that it can make configuring the chart easier? And I think if we're going to want to invest some time in massaging the data, we probably don't want to do it on the chart, especially if I need to run multiple charts off that data. It's a lot easier if I just do what I did with this Excel spreadsheet and make sure that the end data is already in the format that I want it, so that I can just generate charts on the fly with already formatted data. So how would I go about that? Well, I would need to actually get the data out of the Process Director database directly. And so my first step in doing that, and once again, let's take a look at, well, we'll take a look at the data in a second. Let's take a look at the form itself. So on the form itself, I have a Form Data SQL View tab. And what this tab enables me to do is to build a view from my form data. What will happen is on SQL Server, it will create a view object that just has the data I want. And you can make the view real quick. Here it just shows you the SQL that gets created to make the view. And then once that view exists on SQL Server, I can grab that data a lot faster. Several months ago, I did a webinar that we actually ran through and did a comparison of how long it took for us to return, and I think I had a 1,000-row data set. And we used different methods of returning that data. We used knowledge views, we used a business value, we used a view, and we measured how long it would take. I had a stopwatch running on the screen, and we measured how long it would take to pull that data using various methods. And pulling that data out of a knowledge view was taking like 45 seconds, vice 5 seconds pulling it out of a view or pulling it directly from the database. And so that's an important consideration, especially if I'm trying to chart a large amount of data. So not only if I have a large amount of data, is the knowledge view not great because of the amount of time it takes to return the data, and also because of all of the different things that I have to do to group and aggregate each one of those columns into the type of data that I want. It's just a much more complex, time-consuming procedure. And at the end of the day, it's more time-consuming for your end users because now they've got to sit around and wait and wait and wait for the knowledge view to run to actually generate the data before the chart can even show anything. So what I can do, if I just want to chart, especially if I just want to chart one specific form, is that I can have a form data SQL view that I can just create on my system. And once created, it exists in the database as a database object, and I can just query that object directly. So, well, now I guess I do need to go back and log back into the VPN. And I do not know my VPN password because it is very complex. So, well, that's not, I think, what I wanted to do. So let me grab that. Let me put the password in. And there we go. And now I have to open up Authy. You know what? I should have just kept it open. That way I wouldn't have had to do this. And now I've got to wait for 4 seconds because my VPN token is about to expire. Okay, so now I've got a new one. And we'll type in those 6 digits. Okay. And the reason that we're back on the VPN now is because we need to go to Azure Data Explorer and take a look at our base data. Now, this is actually a connection to the database for the training server that we always look at in the webinar. So these are all of my tables, one of which is my sample DB usage form. This is the view that we created right here off of this form. And so with Azure Data Studio, which, by the way, I highly recommend, if for no other reason than because it's free and because it is way, way more lightweight than SQL Server Management Studio. Now I've got my data here. I can look at it directly, and let's just see what it looks like on the database. So I'm just going to pull that over here, and we're just going to do a select star from, and we'll just run this knowledge view. And so here is the data that is saved in the table. Now, most of this stuff we don't care about. The form instance ID, who cares? The name of the form, the create date and time, my user UID for who created it and who updated it, because it's the same person. And finally, we get back to the 4 columns of actual data that are on the form: the form ID, the locations, the mileage, and the vehicles. Now, once again, this is just the base data. And because it's the base data, it's the exact same format that you would see if you would have pulled this data via a knowledge view. But I am pulling it by SQL, so I'm going to be able to pull it a lot faster than a knowledge view would pull it. Now, again, with 15 rows, or in this case, it's not even 15 rows. I think it's only 13. But in any event, you won't tell the difference with such a small record set. They're going to pull back really quickly. At 1,000 rows, you begin to have like a measurable difference, a significantly measurable difference in how long it takes to pull this data back. So this is my data as it exists on the SQL Server. The nice thing about it is it now exists as a view on the SQL Server, so it's always available to return the records way faster than I could return them in a knowledge view, even though they're in the same format here. So far, I haven't really solved any problems other than the time problem that we have to solve in terms of how quickly we can get the data back from SQL Server, which is, in this case, as we said, a lot faster. Okay, great. So I've got my base data. What do I do now? Well, here's the other nice thing about having your data in SQL Server, which is that if it's in SQL Server and I'm pulling it back via a business value, which obviously I would have to do to get the data, well, I have a lot of options for stuff about how I want to see that data displayed. So let's look at the business value that we're using to pull this data back. And this is all SQL. So I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put it in 2 places. One, in case anybody wants it, I'm just going to paste it into chat. And that was to hosts and panelists, so that's not good. Let's try this again, and let's send it to everyone. So in case you want this, you can now copy and paste it out of chat. The other place I'm going to paste it is in Azure Data Studio. I'm just going to make a new query. And I'm just going to paste my data in there, and I'm going to run it. And let's take a look at what we're looking at now and how we have massaged this data. And we're actually going to go through and talk about the SQL statement too. We're going to get into details. But what I've managed to do is turn this into this. And this is actually the data that I want on my chart. This is going to be super easy to chart because I've already concatenated all of the data. If I use a knowledge view and I have to create multiple charts off of that knowledge view, then as we saw previously with the original knowledge view, I had a lot of data series. I think I've actually got this on a different server. I may have to go back in and re-import it because I've clearly screwed something up. I didn't think I saved anything, but all of my chart series are missing. So we'll have to fix that. We'll re-import everything from another server, and hopefully it'll work. But here's my data. How did I get this data? How did I convert this to this? Well, here is where it all happens. So let's talk about the location first. We'll ignore this stuff for the moment. We'll just talk about the location. So this is a select statement, obviously, and I'm selecting BP location as, and in this case, I've just decided to rename it S location for whatever reasons. That I'm just following basically the data type name formatting that we use here at BP Logic. So starting a data field with an S means that it's a string. An N means that it's a number, an integer number. So S location. So I'm selecting the location. Now remember, because I have 3 different locations, I want to split everything out by location. So in addition to having this select BP vehicle location as S location, I'm also doing a group by. Now, what a group by does in SQL is it takes all of your data and sticks it into a single grouped row. In this case, rows based on each of the 3 locations. So just by giving it the group by location, it's going to give me 3 rows of data. And I'm ordering it by vehicle location. So, L, SD, SF will show up in alphabetical order. That's not super important in my case, but that's how I did it. So that's just order. We can safely ignore that. But having the location specified as the grouping level is automatically going to give me just 3 rows of data. Now I got to tell SQL Server what to stick in each of these 3 rows. What columns do I need in these 3 rows? So that's where these 3 lines come in. And if I know how to do 1 line, I automatically know how to do all 3 lines. So for each one of these columns, so let's take this column, this N count of Blazor column. First thing I'm saying is, okay, I want to sum this column. And it's actually the BP vehicle column. I want to sum that column. And that column basically shows me whether it's Blazor or Corvette or Dart. And I want to make a special column that only shows me the number of times that Blazor shows up. Now, again, remember, I already have grouping on the location. So I've already got 3 rows. So that grouping that I put in here is going to apply to all of the other data, all of the other columns that I create with this SQL statement. So in this particular case, I say I want to sum, and because this column will say Blazor, what a sum is going to give me in SQL Server terms is the number of times that Blazor appears in the BP vehicle column for each location. Because again, remember, the location grouping is universal. So it is going to give me 3 rows of Blazor grouped by the location automatically. So that group by is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. So I need the sum, or the number of times that Blazor appears. And the way I'm going to sum that is I'm not actually going to count the rows itself. I'm going to throw in a case statement. Now, case statements have 3 parts. When you type case, the next thing you type is when, which is the condition that you're looking for, then the result that you want, else what are you going to return if my when statement does not apply. And so what I've done is I've just said, okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at this is my condition. I want you to look at the BP vehicle column. And if that column says Blazer, then what I want you to do is return the number 1. If it says anything other than Blazer, I want you to return the number 0. So look at each row, look at the vehicle column. If it says Blazer, return 1. And if it says anything else, return 0. And once you've done that, and I have all of these columns with either 1s or 0s in them, I want you to sum that column. So it'll be, if I have 14 rows, and 2 of them say Blazer for Los Angeles, then what I'm actually going to get is however many Los Angeles things are 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. Okay, if I sum 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, then I'm going to, 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is still 2. So it's going to return the number 2 for this particular column. And I have an end statement that ends my case statement. So I've got case, end, and so it's case when condition, then value to return 1, and value to return if the condition is not true, 0, end. And I want you to do all of this and stick it in a column, which is what the as statement means. I want you to stick it in a column called count of Blazer, or in count of Blazer, to follow the BP Logic's naming convention that we use. Now I got to do that 3 times. Happily, once I have this, and by the way, I am so lazy, that's why I stuck the comma on this line rather than up here, so that I can literally just copy this line and go paste, paste, and then change Blazer to Corvette and change in count of Blazer to in count of Corvette, and then do the same thing for the third line, Dart and in count of Dart. That's all I have to change. As long as I know how to do one of these lines, then all I have to do is change what I'm looking for and change the result. And they'll all have the comma at the beginning of each row, so my comma is already there. Generally, that's not the convention. Generally, the convention would be to put the comma there, and then have it at the end of each line. I'm lazy, so I put it at the beginning simply so that my copy and paste would work fine. Then I need one more sum, but this is pretty simple because the numbers are, this is already a numeric column. My mileage column is already a numeric column. It's the number of miles that were traveled, or the number of miles that were recorded for that particular rental. And I just want to sum it all. So I don't actually have mileage for each of the individual vehicles. I certainly could have done that, and it would have just required that I write 3 more of these lines. And the only thing is I would just change the mileage that I was looking at, and I wouldn't actually explicitly put in values here. I wouldn't need that. I would just need some case when vehicle BP vehicle equals Dart. I wouldn't even need the then or else statement. I would just need the end, and it would just provide me with the mileage automatically. And I would just call it, end mileage or whatever. And because it's already grouped by location, it would just give me the mileage for, Dart, Blazer, or Corvette for that particular thing. In fact, it's always a bad idea to try to do this stuff live. And writing SQL does take me, even though I used to do it on a daily basis, it does take me a little bit of research sometime, but I think just based on memory, and we will go BP mileage here. I think if I do this, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I do need my end though. As in, and we'll just call it Dart mileage. I think that gives me what I want. Nope, it does not give me what I want. Okay. I I actually may have to do this, I think. See, I'm just experimenting on the fly. It's always a bad idea to experiment on the fly, but I'm just trying to do it. I might have to, well, it'll certainly work, but it'll be confusing. So let me run her again. Null value is eliminated by aggregate or other set option. Yeah, I'd have to do a little more research about how to pull that in because it's another case statement where I just want to look for Dart. Um, so it's my else statement that is the problem, and I'm not sure how to fix that. I'd have to do that search, and I'm sorry, we're just not going to do that in the constraints of time because it's already 11 o'clock. We'll just go back to this and we'll just make it work. So I could do it. I would have to do a little more research on what the actual SQL would be. Unfortunately, I have not had to work with SQL Server on a daily basis for the last 14 years, almost 15 years at this point. So my memory gets a little hazy. I apologize. However, this SQL does work and it gives me the data that I want for my chart. And so because I've got this chart data set up the way that I want it using these case statements in SQL, and because I'm just explicitly, setting this value, then it becomes real easy for me to actually chart this data once I've pulled it. So this is the format in which the data returns. And by the way, we can confirm that inside SQL Server. Let's close that out. Let me get back off of the VPN so that I'm not using that thread-like bandwidth. And so now if we run the test query, we can actually see that same data right here. I'm actually just returning those three fields using that statement. The reason that I did it, by the way, in SQL Server or Azure Data Studio is just because it's way more legible, way larger, and easier to read there. But that gives me the data I need to pull all the data back. So, I tell you what I think has exactly the same data on a separate server. Let me look at this chart again. Okay, that is yeah, that's only showing me mileage. I don't know where all of my other chart data went. So let's switch servers. And I have two possible options where it exists. There's the one I want to use on documentation. Oh, goodness. I have multi-factor authentication. I really need to turn multi-factor authentication off on this server. This is a little tedious. So, da, da, da. There we go. Well, at least we know multi-factor authentication works. So let me go in here in the content list and let me look at, oh, that's training courses. Sorry. Archive, charts, and dashboards. That's where I want to be. Again, I don't know that I have the data here. Sample chart, KV drill down, sample KV chart. I mean, I should have at least my base objects correct, even if it doesn't have the data. Okay, so what are we doing? Are we just not opening? Okay, well, finally. Let's go back to my series here. Okay, well, this is nice and slow, isn't it? And I'm not on the VPN anymore. In fact, having done so, we can, I think we can get rid of Azure Data Studio. I'm just trying to change tabs, for goodness sakes. There we go. These are all of my fields with my sums and my counts and stuff like that. And what I'm going to do, since neither of these are running, um, I'm going to try to re-import all of this here. So that's case management. How did I get there? I wanted to go up to archive. Excuse me for a moment while I have to do this. I don't know what I've done to mess that thing up, but it does need to go back into its status quo ante charts and dashboards. So let me export that real quick. And okay, it's taking a while to export. All right, well, while we're waiting, okay, well, there we go. Okay. We'll get our data from there. While we're waiting, let me check. Save as. Downloads. I apologize for this. I don't know what I did to mess everything up, but I clearly did something. So we'll have to re-import that and we'll see if it works after I re-import it. So let's go back to training. Let's go back here and let me re-import that thing and see if I can fix what I broke. I am way outside of where I need to be there. All right, so we'll give that a chance to re-import. While we're giving that a chance to re-import, we'll switch over to the legacy version because the legacy version is the same database. I think we just copied the database over. So I think this is all of the correct data and everything. Oh boy, version 5 looks so weird after you've been on version 6 for a while. But we'll go into my archive here and charts and dashboards. There we go. And we'll go into charts. And what I'm trying to do while it's importing on the other side, I want to run this chart so we can see it. Aha, there we go. So it's working over here. So whatever is wrong on the training server is not affecting it over here. So again, we can now look at the data that we wanted to look at easier. And we have this very complex, because we have 7 for this is the knowledge view, right? And so because we had to create 7 different data series on this thing, the legend is a little bit confusing, but what I've got is a bar chart that shows me my number of rentals for each vehicle. Then I have 2 line charts. 3 of them show me the individual mileage for each vehicle. So this is my Corvette mileage, since it is the red one there. And I can, by the way, turn these things off. So let me turn off mileage for Blazer and mileage for Dart. So these are my mileage that was placed on the Corvette in each one of my 3 locations. And then here is my 7th data series, which is the sum of all mileage. So in Los Angeles, it was 103 miles, in San Diego, 302, and 137 in San Francisco. And then I can just add all of these mileages back in. Oh, Oh, we already looked at the Corvette mileage, didn't we? 67, 71, and 65 in the three different locations. And so we can just add in all of this other mileage back in. And I have this very complex chart. The thing is, to make this very complex chart, I had to do this weird manipulation in the chart series to make all of that happen with all of the aggregations and all of the sums and the counts and the series filters and all of that stuff. And here's the thing. Every time that I want to chart this knowledge view data, I'm going to have to re-go through all of this type of manipulation on every single chart. No matter how long it takes you to create a SQL statement that pulls the data back in the format that you want, you only have to do that once, and then it's, done. And so when I create my charts, my data is already formatted. So if I have to create like 5 charts of this, man, is this going to get tedious, because every time I create the chart, now I've got to go through all of these hoops, creating all of these aggregations to do my counts and to do my sums and to take each one and to do the series filter and set everything to either the primary axis. So the bar chart is my primary axis, since the main type of chart this is a bar chart. So I've got to be sure that I have all of the axes right. So all of my counts of vehicles all have to go into the bar chart. So those all have to be set to the primary axis. All of the line charts that I have for all of the different mileage, that now has to go all into the secondary axis. It just gets complex setting this up. And if you got to do this, 5 different times on the same data to produce 5 different sort of types of charts or 5 different looks at that data, this is going to get super irritating super quick. And with the business value, I only have to do it here. And that's the only place it needs to be done, and then it's done forever. So when I create my charts off of this data, again, that's the business value, which I, of course, incorrectly clicked. Now I've just got, and now I still have a little complexity, right? Because I do have to show all of my columns. So I've got my Corvette column and my Blazer column and my Dart column, and then I've got my mileage chart. And so I still have 3 columns that need to go into primary because I got to generate the bars. So these are my bars that are going to show up in my bar chart. And then I've still got the line, so I've still got to put a secondary axis here. But what I don't have to do is any aggregation. I just have to account for each of the different columns, and then I can just run this thing. Well, if I can figure out how to use my mouse, I can just run it and I can get the data back that I want. And it comes back super quick because obviously it's coming from. And by the way, I wonder if we can actually see a difference between how long it's taking to chop through basically the same amount of data. I think there's 2 rows difference in the data, but I mean, this came up pretty fast. Okay, so it came up and, there's the irritating little animation on the chart to make it look good. That was pretty fast. And let's pull our knowledge view. Okay, I don't know if you noticed it because it seemed fast both times. And again, we're pulling 15 records. It better be pretty fast. But it seemed to me that there was a slight but noticeable delay pulling the knowledge view one back as opposed to pulling back the one in the, let's see if we can count it. 1,001, 1,002. Okay, so that took 2 seconds. Let's run this one. Wow, didn't mean to do that. Fine. Boy, I picked the wrong thing again. Boy, I really love opening that business value. 1,001. Okay. Well, that was a half second difference for 15 rows. Doesn't seem like much. Like I said, it's not very noticeable, but I started counting the second I clicked the button. I got to 1,002 on the knowledge view. I got to 1.5 seconds on the business value. So business value is doing a lot of extra stuff in the back end. It's doing all of the concatenation in the back end, and it's letting SQL Server do all of the chopping of that data. Here's the other thing you got to think about. If I'm going to do it with a knowledge view, remember the knowledge view isn't chopping through anything. What's got to happen here is that the knowledge view has to pass me all of that base data in the same format, which we saw earlier with the knowledge view. It's got to pass that to me. It's the chart itself that now has to take that base data and has to chop through it and do all of the aggregations and the countings and the sums. And that all has to be done to generate the chart off of Process Director. So it's basically running it on the client, although in this case, the client is not your browser. The client is Process Director. Whereas if I do all of my concatenation here, all of this happens on SQL Server. SQL Server is just going to do this faster. And so assuming that that half a second difference is valid, that's a half a second for 14 rows. Well, an average of 14. One has 13, one has 15. So on an average of 14 rows, a half a second difference is noticeable. So once again, extrapolate out, what does it look like if I have 1,000 rows of base data? Is it going to be faster to have SQL Server take that base data and fix it all on the SQL Server side and then send me this tiny little record set that it's going to send me? And indeed, this is a tiny little record set because that's what I'm receiving at the end of it. So is this going to be faster, or is it going to be faster to send me the base data and then have to have the client chop through it and figure out what goes where? It's obviously going to be faster on SQL Server. That's a rhetorical question. This is the best way of pulling back data for charts, especially if there's a lot of data. With my data set, who cares? It's small, it's tiny, it doesn't matter much. But once I start getting into a significant data set, then that is going to be a problem. So now that I have re-imported, okay, that looks good again. Thank you. That's what we wanted to see. That's what it looked like originally. Does my chart run? Hey, my chart even runs. Well, these three columns run. Nothing else seems to be running on this chart. So, not sure why all of the count, some secondary. Well, not sure why it's not working here on this server, but fine. It's all working here so we can see it work. And I guess now that everything has been reconfigured, we can at least go back to the base objects here and take a look at them. All right, so that's the data part of this. So I think, especially if you have a lot of records, your best bet for making charts is going to be doing it via SQL. And we don't do it a lot, and we don't talk about it a lot, but this form data SQL view tab on the form is just super important because it does allow you to save all of that data as a view. And it's not like it adds, it adds almost nothing in terms of your server itself. You're not adding any data. You're literally just creating a SQL query object. But the nice thing about a view is that it just gets compiled into SQL Server. It doesn't have to run it as parsing text. It gets stored as a SQL Server object. It's really lightweight. It doesn't place any sort of great storage capacity, almost none at all, really, on your SQL Server. There's no real limit to the number of views that you can have. And you can just create these things for any of your forms that you want to be able to pull a lot of data back. And look, it goes beyond just charts, right? I mean, charting is important and it's good to get your data back quickly for charts, but think about all of the other times that you might use data that you're currently using a knowledge view. And look, sometimes you have to use knowledge views. You're trying to present something in the UI to the users. So showing them a knowledge view is great. Showing them 1,000 records is not great because no one in the world can parse through 1,000 records. Why you would show anybody 1,000 records in a knowledge view, I have no idea. Usually if you're going to do that, you're charting the thing, you're showing them an infographic. But that aside, let's say you wanted to do some reporting in the system. It's going to be a lot more efficient on the reporting side if you have a view like this. Again, we're assuming we're pulling back data from a single form instance that we can retrieve from a view. If you get, much more complex than that, like you want to pull back, process data as well as form data, that gets a little trickier. Being able to pull that, you might have to know a lot more about SQL to pull that off. But with some, fair to middle and beginner knowledge of SQL, you should be able to do some fairly sophisticated stuff to pull this data back so that you could use it in not only a chart, but in a report. Because let's talk about reports too, because we can also do charting in reports. The reporting component has its own charting component built in. Let's go back and look at the report itself. Well, I thought I would spend maybe 45 minutes talking about data, and it looks like we're going to talk about it a lot more. So when I build a knowledge view, which I can do, and I can take a report and that is the data source report. That's supposed to have it does have a knowledge view. It's right there, the report KView. So, right, I have this report knowledge view that I can run. I just opened it up from the report, so it opens it up in a separate window, but that's fine. We're waiting for the knowledge view because this knowledge view has a lot of records. It's got 1,000 items. So we were having to wait just a little while for that knowledge view to run, which means it's going to take a long time for my report to run as well. So, oops, I have lost fidelity of where I am on my report. So let's go back to my report. Let's view the report. And again, toodly-doo, toodly-doo, toodly-doodly-doo. We're waiting for the report. There we go. We finally got our report. Okay, cool. There's our report. That's fine. Took a while, but we got it. I've got more or less that same data, but this time, when we go to our data sources, I don't have anything on the knowledge use tab. I actually have a data source where I'm pulling the data. Now, in this case, I'm just pulling it from a table instead of a view because I basically just imported a table into the database. It took a long time. Actually, I think that may be a view now that I think about it. That training report data. Oh, and BP process I'm pulling from. So I have a couple of things happening here. Not sure this is the same. It should be the same report. It should be pulling it from BP processes. Okay, it still took some time, but it was a little faster. Again, I don't think it's pulling exactly the same data. Um, I think again, there's some difference between the data that's pulling, but it's close to being the same amount of data that it pulls. I mean, it's still a 6-page report, so it's still pulling more or less the same data. As it turns out, there's 146 object instances that finally get reported to the end. But in any event, pulling it out of a table or pulling it out of a view is just a lot easier if I can just come in here in my data sources. And in this case, that's my data source. And these are the database views. So I'm actually pulling this directly from BP process. So this is actually live data. I think the KView report is from a static table and it is not pulling live data. But this is BP process. This is just built into Process Director. In fact, there are several views that are already built into Process Director that you can either chart or report on, because there's BP process task, task user, your task list, user information. Those are already built into Process Director. Those are built-in views that you can grab at any time. So it basically has all your process data or process task data. It's got your task user data. It's all in there, ready for you to drag, and you don't have to worry about knowledge use. You can just get it directly from SQL Server. So the data question goes far beyond just charts themselves, because it does impact other items like reports. Look, in fact, if you're just reporting in a simple form, right? I mean, it's going to be, I have a form here with an embedded knowledge view. Okay. And well, we have to wait for the form to compile before it'll display the form to us. And I think this is one of the ones that I use whenever we talk about the difference in timing for making this stuff happen. So we've got that form. We've got a dynamic knowledge view. That's not the one I want. Is it passing parameters that I want? I think it is. Let me look at this form here and run it. Okay, so here is a form that just has a knowledge view in it, right? It's returning 1,000 items. It took a while to return because I haven't run this for a while, so the actual form needs to be recompiled on the system before it can actually show it to me. Now, this is one way of showing data on a form. In case you don't want to show people the knowledge view, you just want to show them the form, or you want to put a knowledge view on a form. This is one method of reporting. And, it's great. It works, but it is a knowledge view. And it's going to take a little while to work. And now that this thing has confirmed, well, here is my problem. I've already reached the max number of results. There's 1,000 items. It's not going to show me all of the items. So let's just do a search for email. Okay, great. These are all the items with email. Now it's returning me just 100 items. That's great, but I have another way of doing that. I can just pull a business value and just fill an array on a form with a business value. And that's all this is, just an array with all the fields disabled and show disabled fields as text set in the property. And now I can just pull all of that data from the form, and it's just going to be faster. So this is everything that says test on it. And if I go back to email, and the knowledge view isn't super slow in this case, but there's everything that says email in it. So I can do reporting in this way. And once again, using the business value is generally, especially if I'm pulling back a lot of stuff, is a better option. Oh, not just a better option, but honestly, a more attractive option. Because here, at least I have control over all of my formatting and how I want things to look. And if I just run the form with the embedded KView, it's not going to look as pretty. And as you saw, it took a while for that KView to show up. And there's email. Let's try test, which, again, fine, but it is a knowledge view. And so I'm running a bunch of knowledge views. Fortunately, this data is all coming back fast, but it's just data inside a knowledge view. Doesn't give me the same level of control over the look and feel as this does. Obviously, I've done this as simply as possible in the interest of time, but I could really fancy this thing up. And obviously, if I wanted to run this in a report as well, I would get the same advantages out of the report. So data is super important. And the way that you massage the data is very important. Using the form SQL view, and we're assuming that we're pulling back form data. I think that's a valid assumption because I think for the most of the time, that is the data that you're pulling back. It's form instance data, and you're trying to chart what is happening in those form instances. I think the number of times that you're trying to chart what's happening in a process or whatever is probably relatively small. Generally, you're trying to create infographics to show reports to management or other leadership about how a process, how many submissions I've gotten for a process, maybe what type of submission they were, who submitted them. You might want to look to see if maybe some people are submitting more than others, whatever. That's pretty much all form data. And that's generally what you are charting whenever you are creating those charts. So since that is so, then being able to just make a view of that form really gets you pretty far ahead in the game for that form to work. Additionally, now, here's the nice thing about a view. A view is giving me live data. It's giving me live data all the time. So if the data changes in the 5 seconds between the time user A generates the chart and a different user B, generates it, then each of those users is going to see the data as it existed when they invoked the chart. And if you need the live data, that's great. Commonly, however, you don't really need the live data. What you're doing is you're looking back in the past for managerial purposes. So you want to see, what happened last month or last quarter, in which case you can make things go a little bit faster. Because even though the SQL data is great and gives me my current data, so if I have the SQL view, I'm happy. I do have another option. So assuming that you have it enabled and you have a cache that's created, you can use form caching. Now, with form caching, what happens is that all of the data from this particular form instance is saved to its own data table. The downside, to the extent there is a downside, and I guess there is in terms of speed, it's going to be slightly slower than a cache because if I'm looking at a view, which again, showing me all the current data, if I need that, that's great. But it has to chop through table form data to return all of the data for all of those form instances. And remember, I might have millions of records in table form data that all have to be chopped through. SQL Server is fast. It's designed to be able to chop through millions and millions of records, but there may be a noticeable difference, especially in a larger database, between what you get if you return a regular view, which is going to be looking at table form data, and if you have a form that is cached, because that cached form is going to be its own standalone table. In fact, if we go into my data sources way down here, we go into sample BV data source, and we open up this data source. And we go into select tables. And I got to find them here. That's my sample BV usage form. So there we go. There we go, right here. You've got these tables. These are all cached tables in my system. So basically, these are all tables that store data for a form where I have A, turned data caching on, and B, I have ran the data caching function. I have an entire webinar where we talk about, form data caching and things like that. So you can look at that if you need the details. But when I go to a form and I click on that form data caching, great. That form definition has now been marked to have all of its data cached. There's actually a cache page that you have to run. You can actually run it directly via URL. You can also run it, I think, from IT admin and the homepage of the troubleshooting section where you have all of those server action links. I think there's a run cache in there. I don't remember off the top of my head. I could be wrong. I may be steering you wrong. But anyway, look in the documentation on form data caching. It tells you exactly how to do it. But once that cache has been created, then that data all exists in this single table. So everything that I have saved up until the time the last cache was run, all of my data now exists in this one table. So this table might have, 500, 600 rows in it, whereas obviously table form data has millions. So all I have to do is query this table to pull my data back. Now, unfortunately, we name these tables with the GUID of, I believe, the ID of the form that we're looking at. So I'd actually need to find one of these cached forms and compare and contrast the GUIDs for those forms. But this stores everything in one place, and it's a much, much smaller table, and it's a single table. So technically, I could query these tables directly via SQL inside a business value, and I could pull the data back that way. The only downside here is that the data is only going to be current as of, whenever the cache was run last. So the cache, I think in most cases, the cache runs on a daily basis. And so every day the cache will run and it just gets updated. But like I said, if we're doing any sort of historical reporting and charting, which is a pretty common thing to do, then maybe having a cache table will also save you a lot of time. Now, it's going to store the data basically just like an Excel spreadsheet. So each instance of the form is going to get its own row. And so for each instance of the form, you'll just have all of your form fields will all be separate columns. And you can just query that like you would any other Excel table. And you can pull the data back from your cached forms. So you've got a couple of different options in Process Director for grabbing data without using knowledge views. However, if we're going to cache and you don't know a lot about SQL, here's another workaround for you. Maybe you do want to use a knowledge view. However, you can make your life a little simpler because when you cache data, and I want to pull that cache data. If I use a normal knowledge view, obviously it's going to have to pull the live data, and it's going to pull it from table form data, just like a view will that you save for a form. But once I have these tables here, the cached table for my form definition, the knowledge views get a little different, because on the configure tab of my knowledge view, there is a little checkbox right here, which says this knowledge view will only use cached form instance data. So now I'm not looking at table form data. I'm only looking at that little cache table that only stores information from that one form definition. That's the only thing I need to query. This is going to be significantly and noticeably faster than a normal knowledge view, because I only have to go and grab just those records from that table. So this knowledge view is going to run faster on cached form data than it will on live data. So assuming that we don't know SQL and we can't do all of the data massaging stuff that I've been talking about, and we still have to fall back on pulling data back from a knowledge view for our chart, we can still speed up this process, assuming, of course, that we don't need absolutely current data. We don't need real-time data. We can simply create a form cache for a form definition, and then we can query that cache form instance. Because whenever you are on your properties tab and I'm looking at this form, if this form is cached, then all I have to do is check this box, and it's going to pull that cache data back. And like I said, if you're running your cache daily, then when you run this knowledge view, you'll get everything up to yesterday. But again, if you're trying to report last month or last quarter, you don't really need it to be, right up to the minute. You don't need it to be a real-time chart. You're probably just looking for trends. So even if you don't know SQL, this is another workaround that will enable you to, and by the way, if you do know SQL, great, because this helps you as a SQL user, because you can just query that table directly rather than querying the view. So that also exists, but it also helps you if you don't know SQL, because you can now have a knowledge view that will have much better performance simply because it's looking only at the cached data. So that data caching gives you a big advantage in terms of performance when you're looking at data. Well, I talked about data for way longer than I thought I would. We didn't have much of a chance to look at charts and how to configure charts. And you know what? I have an entire webinar on how to configure these charts specifically. So if you want to, you can go back and look at that webinar and learn how to configure these specific charts. Again, this one didn't appear to come in exactly as I wanted it to, even though I re-imported it. But at least we got to see it run on the legacy system. So, and now we're back to not showing me anything. All right, not sure what's wrong with this system, and this should be a stable system, but you know what? We are going to elide past that. It doesn't matter. We got to see everything we needed to see anyway. On one system or another, we made it work from my original stuff. And I think this should at least prompt some thought whenever you're doing any sort of reporting or any sort of charting, to think about what's the best way of grabbing this data and getting it out of Process Director and getting it back into my chart. And I think you'll find that is going to be helpful to you in the future, and it will be helpful to your users because they'll be able to get their data back a lot faster than just pulling it back with a plain old knowledge view. That's all I have for today. Have a great week. I will not see you next week, so have a great holiday next week, and we'll touch base again after that. So long.